What is going on YouTube? Chrono here and welcome back to another PSO2 video. So today's video is actually a bit of an impromptu one. I had a different one scheduled and set up for us, but nothing can really ever go as planned. So rendering was an issue and I don't know, I'm gonna have to figure something out to do that video. But I figured now would be a good time to go ahead and talk to you guys about Bouncer and Stia. Now, I did record a previous video talking about my thoughts on Bouncer and Stia, but realistically, I feel like keeping that separated from just showing you guys what it is we're doing with Bouncer now just overinflates. I mean, I might talk about my overall thoughts afterwards, either at the end of this video or maybe in a separate video with just some gameplay in the background. But I did want to go ahead and get things like the skill tree out there, what we're doing nowadays, what's going on with Bouncer. Because I mean, it's been a week now since Stia released, and I don't want you guys to have to wait too much longer outside of that, in case you're curious of what should you be doing, like what skill tree should I be using, what button should I press, so on and so forth. We're going to have that conversation with you guys now. So Bouncer, man, Bouncer in Stia is actually a lot of fun, but it's a bit bittersweet. Soaring Blades, essentially because of a new skill, is, I don't want to say, it's not really saved per se, but how can I put this? Put this in a way that makes sense. As you guys can see, I don't even have a script for today's video, but Soaring Blades now is covered. Because of a new skill added in, allowing us to use jet boots optimally, you really are able to deal with almost all situations now, where previously it felt like you were just forcing yourself to deal with all situations before. Now we have the ability to, we have the tools, and that is what I'm going to show you guys today really quick with, skill tree and the setup of our gear, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and talk about that. All right, let's talk about the skill tree to bring things out to begin with. Yeah, I really should start writing scripts again. Anyway, so skill tree is pretty straightforward. You're grabbing everything across the top. Now, this is playing Hybrid Bouncer, and Hybrid Bouncer is basically Soaring Blades Deluxe, where you play primarily Soaring Blades, and jet boots essentially kind of band-aids the biggest issue Soaring Blades had. The way it stands right now, if you're playing Bouncer optimally, you're not playing much of jet boots. Jet boots are used primarily for downs. They're used primarily for their weapon action to assist in situations where step countering or our blade arts parry isn't going to cut it. So yeah, jet boots players, I'm sorry. Realistically, your weapon has kind of been relegated to the same place that Talus is. It's just the add-on to the weapon that's outputting a bit more damage. Now, that's not to say you can't play jet boots primarily. Jet boots primarily still is a fantastic weapon. It covers everything that it needs to do. It's just that Soaring Blades covers those PA slots better, covers those normal attack spots a bit better, covers that active bits of damage better. Honestly, the way that Hybrid Bouncer is playing now, the only two classes I'd say that rival it in certain situations are primarily fighter during downs, because realistically no one can rival fighter's damage during downs because of its skill set, and Braver whenever a target's super active, right? Whenever a target is there to be parried over and over again, because of the way that Braver fighter plays, they can deal with that damage incoming the best and output the most damage back towards that target. Bouncer can deal with it, but not as powerful as Braver can. So they still are stronger in those two scenarios. Force has its place as well, but realistically speaking, outside of those cases, Bouncer absolutely kills it. I would say it's probably one of the top 3 classes in the game, and probably the second most damage, not counting Braver during during counter attacks, but probably the second most damage in the game that's available right now. And that's kind of crazy to even think about. So fortunately with that comes the caveat that it's not jet boots primarily, it's Soaring Blades with jet boots attached to it. So take of that whatever you'd like, but that is what our skill tree currently is. So the new skill, special ability optimization. Why is this a thing? So what this essentially does is it takes your main stat of either melee or tech, it adds it up, and whatever is the higher of the two, it takes the main stat of both, and basically it takes whatever the higher of the two is, and then you scale off of that. Now you're probably thinking, well, if I use techs and I'm playing jet boots, if I'm set up as melee augs, am I losing out on power on my techs? I don't believe so, but it's not going to matter when we talk about something in just a minute. So just hold on to that one and we'll come back to that. Decline gelin effect. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I haven't really noticed this. It's just the fact that we've moved into being a bit more tanky between add-on skills from last region, our new armor not having elemental weaknesses, all that stuff, that I'm just used to having more HP and taking less damage because of even our augment setups. have got us at like 700 HP. So I haven't really noticed this offhand as I haven't really paid attention to it, but I mean, I grab it because realistically, there's not much else to grab. So, and if this is working, this is very nice. So super cool. I wish there's a bit more of an effect that we can see, but realistically speaking, keeping up the declines are already difficult enough as it is with some of our mechanics. So we'll talk about that as well. Defeat amplifier, partial destroy advantage. These are no brainers, max them. Now here comes the stuff about Soaring Blades. You take everything with Soaring Blades. Realistically, you don't need to skip anything. Let's just grab all of this. It's where we get over to Jet Boots where it gets a little bit interesting. So Jet Boots, we're taking extra attack. We're only taking it because we got to get to Jet Intensity. Jet Intensity is fantastic. This is what you use on every single down. Whenever a target is down long enough to get a full Jet Intensity, you use Jet Intensity. You forego everything else. Doesn't matter if you have Fanatic Blade up. Doesn't matter if you have Pinion Blade available. You go Jet Intensity. It's the most damage, and it requires that down to be able to get its damage out in the first place. So make sure you get that taken care of. Elemental set is a bit of a niche choice. This is one of the first options where you could technically skip this. This only realistically works whenever you're using charged SI before you start Jet Intensity. Realistically speaking, you're not using any PAs, so you're not really getting the best effect out of Elemental set because it's not doing anything. Jet Intensity doesn't actually work with PAs, so I'm sorry, Jet Intensity doesn't work with Elemental set, so it's not actually doing anything for you. I would just go ahead and skip over it if you're really not going to do this, but there are the small niche cases where this is useful, so go ahead and grab it. In some situations, you may actually try to go for an elemental down, which is why we took this, which is why we took, Thrust Drive, Skip Attack. You may be going for that elemental down, so go ahead and grab the Boots Elemental set. It's only 1 point. Jet Sweep Jolt is another choice where you could say maybe skip. The only place I've seen this really useful is in some cases you can get a full Jet Intensity if you're fast enough, and there's a bit of time left over. At that time, you don't have enough time to start another Jet Intensity and get the full thing. Fanatic Blade could be on cooldown, though you already have PP, so you're not really worried about that. And Pinion Blade, though useful, can be used afterwards. So you may be able to just go ahead and hit, a quick Jet Sweep Jolt, get some more PP regen back in case you're not already full, and then go into a Pinion Blade afterwards, or if Pinion Blade's unavailable, then you just get your Jet Sweep Jolt and you're good to go. It's possible that just going into a PA after you finish your Jet Intensity might be more damage, and this could be worthless. But that's why I have it in the situation where it's like it's a niche use case, right? You could use it, you could skip it. I've been skipping it, and I haven't seen any situation where I felt like I wanted to have it. So it's up to you individually. We'll have to look closer at it. Essentially, we're just not convinced it's worth even pressing the button yet. Unless you're playing Jet Boots primarily, then of course it's always worth. Basically, take all of these skills, you're good to go. Thrust Drive is actually very useful for chasing. So Thrust Drive allows us to now vertically track our targets a lot better. Beforehand, we had good horizontal tracking, but vertical tracking was a little bit more difficult. Thrust Drive kind of solves that issue for us. Thrust Drive Skip Attack, you can skip this as well. This is a situation where there might be a niche use where this is useful. I give the example that in certain cases where you have enough damage coming at you that's long enough, you can Blade Arts parry, step counter Jet Boot that's really fast, and then step counter Soaring Blades right behind it and get all 3 instances of damage out. There may be something going on with Thrust Drive Skip Attack that's similar to that we just don't know about. And again, we've got the point. I'm not too worried about it. But this is, again, these 3, something you technically can skip. But these top ones, I would go ahead and grab. Boots Trick Bounce, press weapon action, and continuous damage, like whirlwinds, tornadoes, things like that. Those sort of attacks, you just press weapon action on Jet Boots over and over and over again and get damage out. It's better than pressing your step counter. It's better than dealing with Knuckle Sway, because it's actually your main damage attack, so you're good to go there. Just press weapon action, you're good to go. You'll probably see that I've got 2 of these here. If I was gonna get a third one, I'd grab Zangale, but essentially this is just in cases where you need to help with elemental downs. This isn't like your primary goal, but if you need to help along with it, let's say you have a Jet Boots main that is going for the elemental down and needs some assistance, or you have a Tector that needs some help, you can go ahead and cast, a charge, or you can cast a charge Barda, go ahead and get your elemental boot set going, get your SI going, and then help out with, Barda Blot, and then, proc your Barda Blots, or Medge's Fear. This is basically just the 2 strongest, so if you're going to get anyone, these are the 2 that you want to grab. And that's primarily the skill tree, that's what you're going for. If you're looking at the subclass, it's always fighter, more or less. Force, if you're doing things like, let's say, PSE bursts in combat zones, then I would take Force. Realistically, if you have the event weapon from last event, you don't even need to take Force. You can stay Subfighter and you're good to go, because it already has the eradication PP skill on it as a part of its potency or its potential. So you're good to go there. But if you're going to take anything, here you go. And that's all you'll need. And anything else is up to you. Realistically, you don't even need to take any of these. You could drop all this and you're fine too. But anywhere else you have your points, that's totally fine. The reason why I'm doing this way is because people may not be, they may not have access to multiple trees. So they might have to be saving skill points for other locations for playing classes while they're leveling them in those situations. There's an argument can be made for Gunner, but I feel like it's almost always worse than Force. Only in the situation where you're going for burst PP regen, for your active PP regen, and realistically speaking, you don't need it. You have such good PP regen or such good PP management now on Bouncer, it's just not necessary. So there might be some niche cases where this is worth it, but in like 95 to 98% of situations, you don't need it. People are going to ask about Hunter, about the tanky choice. Sure, if you want to be tanky, yes, you can go Hunter. You're sacrificing down damage to be tanky, and yes, the argument always comes out, you do 0 damage if you're dead. Yeah, that's true, but you also can just do 0 damage. So keep in mind that you want to go sometimes tanky, that's totally fine, but if you're sacrificing all of your damage to be tanky, it doesn't matter if you're alive or dead, you're still doing no damage. So have a proper balance, but this is pretty solid. I think that's it. Yeah, I'll leave a link in the video description to skill trees. Let me know if I missed anything, guys, and let's go ahead and talk about gear. So gear is not too difficult. If you watched my augment video, you guys would know that what I'm going to show you is basically the best in slot augment setup. So my Clovis blades, we're going nil soul, the new soul, because it has HP and PP, super solid. If you don't like the down resistance, you can go with something like the Alio souls, which have the PP. You can sacrifice the HP in that situation, you don't really need it. We have so much of it as it is, so feel free to go ahead and use that instead. I would not recommend the Redum souls, those aren't really great. And then I guess if you really want to, you could use the Kavaris souls, which is a little less of each of those. So that's also an option. Like Amsol, I believe, would be the choice here. Like 3 PP and I believe 10 HP. Not the worst choice. Probably would be what I'd go for if I was going to not use this, but the all down resistance is not that much considering one unit used to be more than this when we were using Belgrin, so not that hard to deal with. Mastery, I would only recommend if you have augment protections. You've got 20% to burn and you happen to have a few, maybe close to 10 mil, maybe a bit more. Essentially what you're doing is you're gambling a single capsule on slogging in this augment with augment protection. So if you're going to go for it, that's totally fine. But if not, then just skip over this. I'll show you what you can put in that slot in just a moment. Ultra Credit 4 is just good. It's just awesome. It's 2.5% on floor and potency, minus 10 HP, and minus some damage resistance. It's not the end of the world. We already are minus 5%. Minus 1.5 more is not the end of the world. Addy Death Metal Tech is insanely powerful. It's got potency and it's got potency floor at 2.75%. But if you can't afford to use these, I would definitely go with something like, let's say, Ward Meltech to counterbalance the soul that you would use. Ward Meltech is definitely affordable and something that I would have in my back pocket. Honestly, something I might grab a couple of for some secondary weapons. And then Gigas Tech 4 is just Gigas Tech 4. It's solid, got HP, got potency. We like this extra HP. And this is just, we're not taking it for the HP. It's just, a side effect of getting that 3% potency. This is the slot you could realistically swap out with a single Dreadkeeper 4, but I wouldn't go any higher than a single one. Moving on, we have our Eclairo armor. That's what we're going to be using. The Eclairo armor is pretty solid. Only thing it has is minus 5% damage resistance, which realistically speaking is not that big of a deal. It's not the end of the world. I would definitely be happy with this over Belgren. And then everything's the same except for our Mastery slot, we're using Tech 4. Tech 4 is basically the choice I would go with if you're not using Mastery 4. Mastery 4 is what I'd replace the Tech 4 with. And again, a single Dreadkeeper 4 amongst all of your units and your weapon. So basically 1 out of 4. So basically 3 of these would be Gigas Tech and then 1 Dreadkeeper is not a bad choice. If you can't afford either one of those, Gigas 3 is fine too. It's just, it's 2.5%, so you're losing out on potency. At the end of the day, that puts me at 98.2% with all of these being 46.4. Again, not a bad setup. Pretty solid. I don't have to deal with elemental resistances and things like that anymore. So it's nice to have this be much higher. And even though we have no extra PP and no extra HP, we still are sitting pretty comfortably. I believe this is also with food buff. Yeah, that's with food buff. I think without this, I'm sitting at about 700 HP and I want to say 138 PP. So pretty solid overall. Outside of that, you guys can see my sub palette, I guess. That's what I use on my end. Realistically, all you're doing whenever you're playing Bouncer this way is you're using your Soaring Blades as you normally would. Whenever you get any downs, you're going into Jet Sweep Jolts. Whenever Pinion Blade is up, you're pressing it. If there's a down, you're waiting on your Pinion Blade because Jet Sweep Jolt, I'm sorry, Jet Intensity, not Jet Sweep Jolt. But Jet Intensity doesn't build up your Pinion Blade, so it's totally fine to go ahead and press the Jet Intensity while you've got any downs. So Jet Intensity during downs, press Pinion Blade otherwise, and then Fanatic Blade whenever you don't have any PP. And when you do have Fanatic Blade up, all you're doing is holding your weapon action and then trying to step counter something. If you do haven't managed to step counter something, go ahead and just press your, grab the name of the PF for a second, your Harrier. Press your Harrier twice. Just after 2 slices, go and throw blades forward, and you can go right back in your weapon action, and you're going to see if you can bait out another step counter. And that's basically it. That's more or less Soaring Blades Deluxe in a nutshell. Hopefully that covers everything. I don't think I missed anything on my end, but if I did, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Again, apologies for the lack of a script here. This was a last minute video I'm throwing together because the one I had for you guys is just not working, and that's just something we got to deal with. Anyway, guys, let me know if you have any questions. Toss them in the comments below. Let me know if I missed anything. Let me know what you guys think of the changes for Bouncer. I'm honestly really enjoying it. I like the way this plays. I would much rather have Soaring Blade stand on its own than needing to use Jet Boots, but it's perfectly solid. And the nice added benefit that I didn't mention earlier, but I'm going to mention now, is that because we're augmenting tech, 1, it's cheaper, and 2, we can now even use Talus on the side for PSE bursts and be fully augmented for it, which is really, really nice. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Sub if you want to keep up with more of this content. Put a clown emoji if you notice I can't end videos very well. Anyway, take care, guys. Peace out.